Hello! Welcome to Diminishing Returns. It's a podcast all about films. My name is Alan. With me, as always, is Sol.
Hi.
And joining us our special guest today, it's YouTube's #1 Bond reviewer, Calvin Dyson.
Hello, it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Yes. Calvin, you're a Bond aficionado. That's obviously why we usually have you on the show. But today you're here for our Easter special.
Yes.
In which we slag off religious people for a couple of hours. Why would you choose to do that?
Well, I am a stickler for completism, if I'm being completely honest. And previously we had covered God's Not Dead and God's Not Dead 2 together for, I think, did we do it in one episode a few years ago?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so I have morbid curiosity and a completist nature that has led me to endure 106 minutes of God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. But actually, before we get into talking about this, I wonder if you mind if we have a quick recap of the first two. I'm curious to see, if either of you two remember that much about the first two, because all I can tell you about them is that Hercules is in the first one, and there's a scene where he has a load of, snotty dinner guests over who make fun of his religious girlfriend's wine, and he dies at the end, and some dickhead is, dancing around him about how wonderful it is. And then
He's
the
hit by a
second
car,
one...
Yeah.
The second one is Sabrina the Teenage Witch in court,
Yeah.
and I can't remember anything else other than that.
And Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters there.
Ernie Hudson.
Which one?
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson's there. He's the judge.
The thing is, Calvin,
Duck
the only thing I
Dynasty's
remember
there
from
as well. The Duck Dynasty man, he's in one of them.
The only thing I remember...
The Newsies are there, the Newsboys. They're in all of them. They're in this one as well, over the credits.
I don't know who they're supposed to be, apart from in this film.
They sing God's Not Dead.
Oh, okay, makes sense. Well, the only thing I remembered about the second film, Calvin, was that Sarah Michelle Gellar was in it. So
Really? Oh, no, wait, no.
I'd like to apologise to Sarah Michelle Gellar for misremembering her and confusing her with Melissa Joan Hart. I didn't really remember much, I will admit. I figured out that one of the characters in this was in the first film.
Near the end of this film, they name drop Joss Whedon, and I was like, "Oh, that was in the first one, I think," because I found it really funny.
Yeah.
Josh Wheaton in this film. I'd forgotten about him. I knew Reverend Dave because I think we all...
Yeah, he's in all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I remembered him, yeah.
In a supporting part, and he's also producer and one of the heads of the production company, so I guess that explains why he's now positioned as the main protagonist of the franchise moving forward. But up until now, he has just been a supporting player, and a bit of an obtrusive one at that. I think in the first couple we might have said that his little tangents and subplots felt really beside the point. Yeah.
So now they're focused on him, they don't have to mess about with other stories.
Yeah,
The way everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's Pastor Dave." Is it Pastor Dave or Reverend Dave?
Pastor sounds funnier.
I think it's Pastor Dave, isn't it? Is it Reverend Dave? Priest Dave? Father Dave?
He is Rev Dave Hill, the pastor of St. James Church, apparently. So
Dave
I think
Hill?
It's Pastor Dave.
Wasn't Dave Hill in Slade?
Wasn't Slade the prison in Porridge?
Yeah, good link. Isn't porridge what bears eat?
Does a bear shit in the woods, Alan? Does the Pope shit in the woods? See,
dear.
it's all come back
Anyway,
around.
look.
Christianity.
So yeah, he's a pastor of whatever denomination of Christian.
Yeah, this is his whole film. This one, it's really I'd call it a God's Not Dead spin-off, but this is God's Not Dead 3. I'd say this is like when they made Puss in Boots. It wasn't called Shrek 5.
So you think they should have called it Pastor Dave's Not Dead?
Yeah,
I
do, actually.
What constitutes this as a spin-off for you? Because should they've got
side character?
Should they've got some other washed-up actor to be the lead, and then it would have been a true third?
It's not even a courtroom drama. That's what, right? This whole film tees up a courtroom drama for 2 hours, and then it never happens, and it just it just goes right. That's it. It's done.
I was surprised at how quickly what I thought was going to be the main plot was resolved about halfway through, and then what the hell are they going to do for the next 50 minutes? Not an awful lot, it seems, but yeah. Just to briefly give some context to the plot. Reverend or Pastor Dave is released from prison. Apparently, I had to look this up because apparently he got incarcerated at the end of the second one, which I have no memory of, but it sounds really funny. So I don't know if I just missed it, but yeah.
The first God's Not Dead is like a quote-unquote courtroom drama. It's about a student and a lecturer at a university or a college, whatever it is in America, and they're having a big debate and trying to convince the class whether or not God is dead. Of course, metaphorically speaking, both because God isn't real, but also because the notion of God being dead is meant like metaphorically beyond that, even if you believe that he's real. And then God's Not Dead 2 is like an actual proper courtroom drama with Sabrina the Teenage Witch is like a teacher who gets taken to court because she mentioned Jesus once, and the evil liberals are like, how dare you say Jesus in school? And they're like, you have to say God's dead now. I won't do it. Right, well, you're going to go to prison then. And I assume that's where Pastor Dave turns up. I assume he turns up. The judge is like, I hold you in contempt of court. And he's like, all right, well, you can't hold God in contempt of court. And then they arrest him. And that's where we pick up with this. It's Pastor Dave coming.
No, the point is he was required to hand over his sermons to be inspected by the police. I don't know why. I can't remember what the
they
point
do
of
set
that was.
up in this.
And he refuses, and he sort of says, well, no.
Is that the end of the second film? I just thought that was like a...
It was the beginning of this one. So.
Yeah, they make a big thing of some new law passed requires them to, yeah,
I don't know what it's all about. But the crux of it is not that he's pastoring in his church. The problem is that his church is on the grounds of a university.
How do you think Pastor Dave survived prison?
Well, he was only in there for 4 hours till his mate came up with a check and bailed him out.
Even so, he's got a very annoying face.
He probably turned the other cheek.
Did you like he's flirting with a waitress at a few points in this film?
She's not a waitress.
What is
She's
she?
the manager of a food bank.
She's a waitress.
She's like helping homeless people like not starve to death.
She's like, what would you like today? We've got some nice bread in that needs eating
cans
up.
of corn.
Yeah. Well, she gives him a load of food to take away, and in the bag with like his burger, he's like looking for the chips that have got loose in the bag or whatever. He's got a bit of paper there, and she's written on it, "I really like Bad Boys," smiley face, because he was in prison. Are these characters 12? Is that how adult Christians operate, like handle themselves in America? They don't just like talk to people of the opposite sex. They don't just sort of say like, "Oh, do you want to, grab a drink?"
No, that's why he sent. That's why he sent his
note.
mate in to say, "Oh, my mate fancies you."
Yeah.
Voulez-vous?
She puts a note in his phone. That's so embarrassing.
That's what your mum does, isn't it? Put a note in your lunch bag saying, never forget I love you.
Even if he's not interested, she's just made it awkward for next time. Because it's like, do I bring up the note? Do I not?
He's devoted his life to God. He's ignored women.
I couldn't remember. Is he the type that doesn't have sex with women, or the type that does?
No, they all do, apart from the Catholics.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So he's a Protestant.
Catholics have too much sex. Oh, there were so many babies.
Not the priests, they don't. The priests aren't allowed.
Oh, well. They don't have the type that makes babies, but they definitely... Sorry.
A cheap
that.
swipe from Calvin there.
Yeah. I caught myself halfway through and decided not to follow through with it.
So, should we mention, by the way, thanks to our Patreon for making us do this fucking film? Or maybe not thanks. Maybe we should blame them. But our Patreon subscribers were offered a choice of Christian propaganda to make us watch for Easter. And a couple of things that weren't Christian propaganda. And God's Not Dead 3.
Finding Fatima.
God's Not Dead 3 was overwhelmingly the popular choice. Do you know what we nearly watched?
What?
Second place.
What?
Passion of the Christ.
Oh, I've never seen it. Let's sum up more of the plot. So the whole
There isn't a plot.
well, the thrust of the
There is,
first
just a-
chunk of
It's not
this
just a load of
is that
shit happens.
is that Pastor Dave's church
It'd be
is
very negative.
going to be demolished because it's on the campus grounds and they want to build a new students' union. On one fateful night, though, a student comes and sets fire to the place and accidentally kills Pastor Dave's beloved friend.
Well, he doesn't.
Pastor Dave's
even-
beloved friend, who we've never met before, is the
He's in
only
the-
black
he's in the
character in the
previous film.
franchise and has, 2 minutes of screen time?
He's in the other two
He's in
films.
the film before.
No, he's not.
He is.
Yes.
I looked
No,
it
he's
up,
not.
and he appears in the next one as a ghost.
He was in the
don't
last
ruin it
one.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really
Pastor
don't remember
Dave.
anything about.
There's a scene where he's picking him up from the airport, and he's like, "Oh, I bet you don't have cars in Ghana or whatever." It's like some really crap humor. But yeah, he serves no purpose. I don't blame you for not remembering him, but apparently it was all just an elaborate setup to make us love the character so much that we would be devastated when he dies here.
It was. It was like when Felix Leiter died. It's just- I shed a tear. But yeah, the kid who sets fire to the church doesn't even do that deliberately. He basically chucks a brick through the window in sort of quite a petty act of vandalism.
And in like Rube Goldberg-esque mechanics, the brick lands on like a handle that then gets turned on, releasing a load of gas.
And then a light bulb explodes,
Yeah.
as they do.
Yeah. So there's a gas explosion, which maybe it was an unsafe building. If it was that, one brick can blow it up. Maybe they should have knocked it down.
But yeah, so basically we have two strands of there where Pastor Dave is having to deal with that, and then the university decide to try and use this as an opportunity to get rid of the building altogether in the church. And then also this kid who is obviously feeling the guilt of having done this act, which he didn't mean to do that badly, but he has to deal with that. And for some reason, we kind of see that through the proxy of his girlfriend. For some reason, we can't just have... Yeah, but he is... why not just have the one character there rather than the one in a cipher? I didn't really understand why we needed two characters there.
Because he's an atheist.
He wasn't really, though, was he?
Well, no, but he's written as an atheist character, and therefore Christian audiences who love these films aren't going to go for that. They're not going to follow a film about it.
Well, I think we'll get into talking about this a bit more, because I thought that relationship was a bit... I did have trouble keeping up with who was the more devout of the two, either the kid or his girlfriend. I think they were both somewhere on the Christianity spectrum anyway. But
yeah, but it's because he kills someone. He's like, oh, I better become a Christian then.
Okay.
Because before that, he's mad about Christianity, and he spray paints a cross on the church.
Yeah. I kept getting
It's not a crucifix he's spray painting, though. He's not going, yay, God. That's
yeah,
like
not
a
one.
bad
No,
cross.
it's a cross like a big red.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more akin to the pass over this house, don't take our firstborn in the night. It's one of those crosses. He spray paints on the church, but that's enough that then the police are like, oh, it was a hate crime, rather than it was an accident.
I was getting a bit confused in places with Josh Wheaton, the returning star of the first one. So maybe that's where I was getting confused about his religious
It's surprising, isn't it?
affiliation.
Because I thought he'd been cancelled after what's her name out of Buffy was saying he was pretty shitty and set on the set of Justice League as well. So was surprised that Joss Whedon turned up for this film. But...
Oh dear.
Well, let me ask you a question, guys. If you committed a small crime and then it accidentally, translated into a much worse crime, would you feel guilty about it? Like over above the original crime you committed?
Probably. What? Give us specific examples. Go on.
You throw a brick through a church window, and then it explodes and somebody dies.
Yeah, I think I would feel terrible about the dead person.
Yeah, I think I would as well. It is kind of manslaughter, I guess.
But you had no intention to hurt anybody. I mean, what's from a moral point of view of intent? Then
Yeah, but my carelessness, it was there's no real justification for me throwing that brick.
Okay, what about this? Right,
if I needed to throw the brick through the window to get someone's attention to save their life, and then doing so accidentally killed someone, then I don't think I'd feel too bad about that, because I was like, there was a reason for doing it. It wasn't just like a random act of chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't feel guilty about it. I'm just saying I don't think I'd feel like I needed to confess.
I mean, I think I'd feel bad about it if I was Alec Baldwin and I shot that woman, and that's not his fault, is it? So I think I'd still feel bad. So.
All right, what about this? You're walking through the park and some kids are playing football and the football drifts towards you, so you're like, oh God, I'm going to have to kick it towards them. But because you're a spanner, you totally spoon it and it smacks a little puppy in the face.
Have you been watching Ted Lasso, Alan?
No, but...
You're basically describing a plot line.
Oh, really? Well,
someone kills a dog in front of like a crowd of football fans.
It's an obvious comedy bit.
Yeah. I didn't tell you guys, did I? I went on a date the other day. I mean, I said this is a few weeks ago now. And like, I did the coolest thing I've ever done, and I was really annoyed because she didn't see it, because she was like down the other end of the road I hadn't met her yet. I was walking to the bar, and a guy went past on a skateboard, and he like came off his skateboard, and I like put my foot on the skateboard as it went past me to stop it, and sort of kicked it back over to him like, "There you are, mate." And he like, it was like it's like the coolest thing I've ever done.
You didn't like do a heel flick off it and like spin it into his arms. You just rolled it slowly back to him.
Yeah, I just grabbed it with my foot and like kicked it back over to him.
Oh, well done. You're practically an athlete.
Yeah. So yeah, if the football came over to me, I'd spin it. I'd spin it round the puppy's head. It would have curved. I would have curved the ball. I'd spin on it like in the Matrix.
I try to avoid when I see people playing with balls in parks and public spaces. I try to not be within distance, or at least put a train of people between me and that, just to avoid such a situation. Particularly,
I remember
alone.
Calvin. I used to walk through Hyde Park in Leeds with you sometimes, and he's not lying.
Yep.
I had to give him a wide berth.
The ball literally just rolls to your feet. It kind of it hits you before you even notice it's there. Like, you have to acknowledge it. And there's a little child. He's 6 years old.
That's even worse, because you're more likely
he's beckoning
to smack
over
him in the
to
head
you.
with it when you kick it over to him.
No. If it was a 6-year-old child, I would probably do it. But if we're talking like 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds,
it's 14-year-olds, but they look like they're 23.
Oh no, definitely not in that case. Because either I kick it and they laugh at me because I'm shit at kicking, or I don't kick it and they think I'm an arsehole, which I am as well.
So
or you pick it up and use your hands to throw it, and they laugh at you for that as well.
Oh dear.
No, that's what you have to pick it up, walk very deliberately over to them, hand it into their hands, and then walk away with your head held high.
There we go.
Or just go, sorry lads, look at me. I'm just going to have to walk away. I'm sorry. And then they go, we understand.
Sorry lads, it'll be here when I walk away. It'll still be here, so come and get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well. Okay, so let's get back into the film. This fella, he dies, Jude, he dies in this sort of tragic accident. Pastor Dave attempts to save him, pleads to God to help him save him, and then he dies.
So we expand the Pastor Dave universe in this one by he goes to his brother, who is a lawyer, to help him fight for the right to keep this church on this campus land. He's played by John Corbett, who Sex and the City
actor.
fans may recognise as a relatively prominent character from a couple of the seasons of that show. So he's an atheist, which is he's probably the most positive example of an atheist character in this series so far. And indeed, I feel like this film was doing a bit more. I feel like they were responding to some of the criticism that was thrown at them for the first two, where here I feel like they do explore a bit more of a grey area. Obviously, it's still very clear in what its mission objective is to recruit more Christians, but I did feel like, oh, okay, it does actually try to show some grey area, and it's not just Christians good, everyone else bad in this.
I do wonder to what extent that's down to this is the first film in the series to not be directed by Harold Kronk. The wonderful name.
Kronkmeister.
the old Kronkster. So I do wonder if this was written and directed by a guy called Michael Mason. So
Have you seen what else he's done though, Michael Mason?
No,
I'm going to look it up now.
Go on, look it up.
All right.
Oh, what is it? What is it? Is it porn?
Well, there's it's not that funny. Calvin, these. I looked him up.
It's that funny because I just loaded up his page and I was expecting to see
Home Alone 4.
Home Alone 5 or whatever, and what I got, Alan, was 2 credits. Director, God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. Writer, God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. And that's it.
Oh,
Yeah, this is the only thing he's ever
Came
done.
out of nowhere, vanished just as quickly from the look of it. So,
But
wow.
well, yes, but that was when why was there only one set of footprints on the beach? That was when I was directing God's Not Dead 3. This is, I think, right, I don't want to be too controversial here. I think this is the best film of the 3 that we've seen. I can't really remember the other 2.
easily.
But this felt well directed and structured a bit better,
I did.
and like it made sense.
I don't know about that. I think
The
they're
story
Yeah.
followed a linear pattern.
I must admit, when I was watching it, I thought, you know what? If I just was flicking through channels on TV one day, and I saw 2 minutes of this,
I think it was a real film.
I would think it was a real film. Like, it's shot properly. It doesn't look too bad. The acting's not awful. And I remember the other 2 films looking quite cheap and nasty, So, in that regard, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I also think the other 2 films are hateful. I think they're actually quite insidious, unpleasant.
I agree
films.
with Calvin. Yeah, it does seem like they're trying to make a bit more of an effort to have a more rounded view.
Yeah.
It's all relative, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, also just the general message of the film, because it's all about oh yeah, look, we're going to fight to keep the church on the university grounds, and then the ending of the film is oh well, look, they don't want us, so let's walk away from it.
yeah.
Which is a sort of curiously, I don't know, appeasing attitude. They're just okay, look, yeah, we don't have any place on the university campus. That's not the place for religion. Just go and build a church somewhere else where people who want it can come and get it.
Which is the sensible thing to do. But...
And obviously that's presented as the Christian thing to do is turn the other cheek and forgive. It doesn't matter if a guy killed your best friend, because you've forgiven him. And it's okay, that feels a bit more what Christianity wants people to think it is. So that's makes sense that that's the projection they're doing here. But I also noticed that they occasionally have moments in this film. It goes in the other films as well, where someone will actually question like Christianity in some way, like, well, what about this? Well, why does this happen? Like, what does God say about this? None of those questions ever get answered. It's always just like the pastor or whoever it is just like goes, yeah, well, it's very complicated. God moves in mysterious ways, and there's never a good answer for any of those questions. But then the film presents it as if, well, that's that dealt with. No problem with that.
Yeah. But I was surprised at how much of this, like, at one point, I think it's Josh Wheaton, isn't it? He says that he identifies as a liberal, like, because I think he's being questioned about, political values or whatnot. And then there's another bit where, like, Pastor Dave is actually called out at a few points, and I liked it where he was with a black reverend who sort of calls him out on his whole Christian persecution complex, and he's like, "You think you have it bad? Like, for God's sake, what do you think I grew up with?" Like, and I thought it was interesting that it was. Yeah, it was doing that. It was.
It laid it on a bit thick because it prefaced that by Pastor Dave literally going like, "Look, I'm being really persecuted, and you wouldn't know what that's about." Okay.
Yes.
Like,
I'm not saying it's good.
On that
I'm not saying it's subtle, but yeah.
But yeah, at least I acknowledge that.
So when is it when they get into the Mandala Effect at the start? Near the start. Did you like that?
So there's a little group of atheists all meet up and hang out together to talk about Mandela Effect. Yeah.
I was so angry with this scene, right? So they all meet up and then they're all talking about the Mandela Effect like it's
they're students though. They're just wanker students.
The Mandela Effect like
it's quite realistic, really.
But they're talking about it like it's, A, something no one's ever heard of before, B, incredibly thoughtful and insightful, and but the worst thing is they're like, well, come on, that, like, it's not like, remember that episode of The Office where no one can remember if Stanley has a moustache or not? That's good, because does he?
Yeah.
Does he though?
Yeah. I haven't seen that show for about 10 years, but I'm pretty sure he has, yeah.
Well, Alan's clearly just Google image Stanley from The Office to
I googled Stan Lee. It was
but yeah, my problem is they're, well, similar to you, Alan. They're like, did Curious George have a tail? Yeah, of course he did. No, he didn't. I've seen Curious George like 3 times in my life. Of course he didn't have a fucking tail. What are you talking about?
He looks monkeys. Monkeys have tail.
He might have a little button tail, like a little nubbin. He's not got like a long...
Well, Solly, you don't have to go that deep. It's called the Mandela Effect because people think Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. That doesn't make any sense. Like, the consequences of his life after that were very, very significant on a global scale. Like, to think that... I've never really understood the Mandela Effect concept. Like, I understand, like, oh, well, Kit Kat rappers look different to what I thought. That's one thing, but to think Nelson Mandela didn't, exist in the 90s is just like, what? Who did? Well, who led South Africa? Like, well, what's the next part of this whole theory?
Yeah. Well, I've never really understood that either, just because like I know he was alive during my lifetime. So.
I think that's just an American thing. I think they're just a bit more distant from it. Like, not that we're particularly in tune with global politics, but
yeah.
People get quite animated about the Mandela Effect, just to bring it back to Bond, because everything comes back to Bond, obviously. That bit
that
in
woman has braces.
Yes, that's the bit. Jaws' girlfriend in Moonraker, people think that she had braces and she didn't, and I made a video about it. And some of the comments that you see, it varies wildly from people who think that whatever the first version was that they saw the film on.
They edited it.
Yes,
when it went from DVD.
Yes,
Someone needs to track down the original print they played in the cinema. It had a different take.
Well, it's you have people who sort of say, oh, I saw it in the cinema and she had them. Oh, I saw it on VHS and she had them. Oh, I saw it on Laserdisc and she had them. It's always the format before what people had readily available that seems to be the one that it had it on. There's no consistency to it, but every now and then you do see comments from people who are like, oh no, it's genuinely like a rift in the Matrix kind of thing, and this is an example of that, like that Nelson Mandela.
I know. I know who can answer this question for us, Calvin. But someone who was on set when that was made. So we don't need film. We can just ask our good friend Cubby Broccoli if that woman was wearing braces or not. Was he dead by then, Calvin?
No, of course not.
All right.
I've just got my Ouija board out. I'm just messing about with that. I ain't gonna say.
Hey, yo!
Oh, there he is.
Oh, right. Barely had to do anything to summon him there.
No, Mike,
Right,
the little planchette of the Ouija board. Yeah, I've got. Thing is, this is a special Cubby Broccoli Ouija board. So I've got one bit that just says "Hey, oh," and that it went straight to that.
Well, it's just the letter instead of the alphabet. It's just A and the O. My spine was tingling.
Yeah. Well, we need to ask you a question, Cubs.
Question about some TNA. Now we're talking.
Yeah, teeth and the Alps. That's what we're asking you about. Calvin, what film was it?
It could be in Moonraker. Jaws meets his girlfriend.
It's the one with the big tall fella with the metal teeth. He's not going to know the titles of the films.
Yes, that's true. He meets his girlfriend, who is a very attractive blonde lady with pigtails, and they smile at each other. People are under the apprehension that the character was wearing braces when that scene took place. Can you confirm whether that is indeed the case, or has the film been digitally altered since your passing to remove these?
Oh yeah, we digitally altered all those movies all the time.
Oh.
Using some of them computers.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Very impressive that you had that technology available before, Steven Spielberg did Jurassic Park. And
well, that was it. But now we're thinking, you know how they digitally took the guns out of E.T. and replaced them with walkie-talkies? Has that ever happened with Bond? Man with a golden walkie-talkie? And, did you ever have any conflict with Sean Connery?
Not while we was alive.
Oh God! You're not kicking off in the afterlife, are you?
Nah, we're best pals down in the great beyond.
Oh really? Yeah. You never sort of make an inappropriate joke about his wife or anything, do you?
Only with an open hand, if you catch my drift.
Cubby, in fact, can you confirm for us, is God alive? Is he truly alive?
No, God died. God's in the afterlife with us, so he must have died at the start of time.
Oh.
Don't gotta be alive to run heaven or hell or Styx. Must limbo. Hey, I like the limbo when you get it nice and low for the limbo stick. Hey, boo boo.
We need to move on. I'm sorry, Cubby. We just needed to ask you that quick question.
Yes, but thank you very much, Cubby.
All right. Oh.
He's funneling back into the crystal ball.
Just to go back to the film, it's around about the halfway. So we've all been set up that it's Pastor Dave going to save the church, all that kind of stuff. I'm thinking, oh well, this is obviously what is going to carry on throughout the entire film. About halfway through, they kind of succeed, right? Like, I didn't misunderstand something. About halfway through, he does some weird filibuster thing outside the church while his brother goes and gets some kind of permit. And then that's it. He has the church, but he's still going to sue the...
No, that just buys them time, really.
I buy you 3 weeks, is what he said.
They're saying, look, we're chucking you off. He's like, oh, well, I'm going to sort of fight that. And they're like, well, let's just knock the place down so he can't do anything about it.
Well, that was fucking bullshit. So, number one, the builders are there to knock it down on Sunday. Builders working on the weekend. What's that about?
they've got one bulldozer. They're just going to plow straight into it and hope.
Yeah, they're going to bulldoze. It's quite rare in America that you get a building that isn't just made out of like very, very flimsy like MDF. So like the fact that they've brought that to like one of the few brick buildings in the country is.
Well, I think the idea is that they're trying to use the fact that it had an explosion in it as an excuse that it's not safe and they have to knock it down. That's what.
Well,
they're
that's pretty fucking
they're
reasonable. When generally speaking, if a building gets exploded, you do knock it down and build a new one.
It was only a little explosion though. But they're trying to use that as an excuse. They're trying to push it through quickly before anyone notices. And he sort of
because otherwise you got to spend money fixing it up and cleaning it up.
Insurance will cover that though.
Anyway.
The university won't have to pay a penny.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's been
obviously
knocked
the point
down now. Let's just knock it all down.
The point is they're trying to use it all as an excuse to get rid of the church, which is a bit dodge because it is like if you were, it was very victim blaming of them. You know, this church was the victim of a hate crime and an anti-religious rhetoric. So shutting down the church and throwing the pastor off the campus would not be good optics.
Well, it's all been signed off and what have you, and then the lawyer guy says like, "Hey, if you bulldoze this while I fuck off the church for a couple of minutes to get like an injunction or whatever, like to get some kind of legal stuff passed, I'll have you arrested." You can't do that. What are you on about? Builder's just there doing his job. Lawyer's not got any fucking power to tell him not to do anything, has he?
Yeah, it's what lawyers do. They got to sort of throw the right words around, get them scared, just keep them on their toes. I do like that he invokes the fact the religious belief of the judge to basically to get her to sign off this injunction, which is exactly why we shouldn't let people who have religious belief become judges. I mean, that seems a pretty good example of that. Shouldn't be letting your personal feelings getting involved. In this film that we watched, we have a little bit of a conflict between Pastor Dave and the stuffy old dean of the university. And
stuffy old dean.
What happens at one point is that the stuffy old dean drives over and smacks him in the face. Now, I am not a lawyer, but if you're in a legal suit with someone and they drive to your house and punch you in the face, you pretty much just won that lawsuit. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that anymore. But they don't even do it. Even his like cynical lawyer brother doesn't like go, "Oh, great, let's call the police and get this guy arrested immediately, and we'll wrap this one up nice and easy."
Because they believe that that's all right. Don't you remember when was it Charlie Hebdo happened and the Pope was like, "Well, you make fun of someone's mother, you're gonna get smacked in the face, mate."
I remember when Will Smith smacked Chris Rock in the face, slagging off his wife.
Yeah, and who came to his defense? God, in his acceptance speech. And quite a few people were pro Will Smith afterwards. Still are. And I bet you they're all Christian. They're all like, "Well, you got to defend your family, aren't you?"
You know what, right?
I mean, I'm making some wild accusations, connecting some wild dots here, but I think it's all true.
You know what, right, though? In the film, I was just thinking the whole way time, like, how do you translate, like, what God wants? Because something happens, something bad happens, like a kid, gets run over by a car, and you go, "Oh, well, it's all part of God's plan. We don't know why he's doing this for us." But then, like, something bad happens to you, and you go, "Oh, this isn't fair. I'm going to fight it." So, like, at what point do you go, "Well, obviously, God wants me to get rid of this church. He wants them to knock it down so I can do something else." And then, so I'm thinking that, like, what's the rules here? And then at the end of the film, that's basically what happens. He goes, "Oh, well, I guess God wants this church to be exploded, and I've got to his plan for me is something else. I'll just wander around aimlessly until I figure out what it is."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what are the rules? Like, how do you translate everyday events to? Yeah, but they must at least pretend there are some rules, surely. Like the ones who are doing the translating, the pastors of the world. So, do we have free will or not? And how do you know when to exercise it and when not to?
I'd love to hear Pastor Dave answer these questions.
Ding dong. Oh, it's Pastor Dave. Hello, Pastor Dave.
Hey guys, Pastor Dave here. I'm kind of a cool pastor.
What makes you such a cool pastor, Pastor Dave?
Well, I live on a university campus. I've never done anything with my life, and so I really relate to 18-year-old kids who've never done anything with their lives, asking stupid questions.
You got like a cool hairstyle, I assume.
Yeah, I got this 90s curtains thing going on.
Oh yeah, that's very cool. Very, very cool.
You know, there's no hyphen in Kit Kat.
What?
Yeah.
No,
Mandela
fuck off.
Effect. Yeah, think about it.
Wow. No, I mean that does make you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does it make you think?
God. God is love.
Pastor Dave, our friend Alan had some very profound questions for you. Alan, ask Pastor Dave the question.
What was the question I asked? Do we have free will, or does God will override what we do? You know what? It's times like this I really like to think about the miracle of Jesus walking on water. A lot of the time we have to ask ourselves very difficult questions, and it's right that we ask those questions. Thanks very much.
Oh, right.
Pastor Dave.
Yeah.
Why did God make Will Smith punch Chris Rock? What? Because he said that's why he did it in his speech. God made him
come
do
on
it,
now.
so.
It was just a slap, okay? If he wanted to hit him, he could have really hurt him, and we gotta bear that in mind. He was just sending a message, kind of like how God sent a message when he killed all the firstborn of whatever that thing was.
Good, very good. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Pastor Dave. We'll carry on.
Anytime, guys.
Talking about the film now.
I'm just wandering, looking for God's work.
Anyway, going back to what Sol said earlier on, I very much agree with the notion that this film is nowhere near as hateful, as full of bile as I think the other two are. It is, however, I think...
That's Howard Cronk, innit? He's an old Cronk. That's what they say.
It is, however...
Do you remember that Eddie Murphy film, The Cronks? He played...
Alan, I think you're having the Mandala Effect there.
What?
It's actually called The Clumps.
No, he played an old white man who was a film director. I remember.
I agree with that, but I do think it is much more boring. I found this a mind-numbing experience to sit through. It's so long. It's at least half an hour too long. Yeah.
This is my problem with what Alan said before about how he said that this is better made, essentially, and you said structured and blah 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 blah. And I think there's less story here. I don't think there's really a plot. It's just a load of meandering bullshit. The other two films have a pretty concise story that they're telling.
It does have a story. It just never really manages to reach a climax, because every time it's getting there, the Pastor Dave goes, let's just leave it.
Turn the other
cheek.
cheek.
Never really builds to anything.
It's just full of scenes. There are scenes with him and his brother where I think that the dialogue is just nothing. They're just talking about nothing. It might be a bit about their childhood or whatever, and I think the point of it is to be like, oh, isn't it nice watching these two bond? But there's I don't feel like their relationship... I guess they become closer by the end of the film, but there are just all of these scenes that don't do anything, don't go anywhere, and it's just full of that.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad writing.
It felt like this film was asking questions and then not answering them. So part of the whole thing with the relationship with the brother is that the brother decided to kind of abandon his faith, and he fell out with the rest of the family. And we see that sort of from Pastor Dave's point of view. And then later on, he gets into a discussion with him, and the brother says, "Well, no, I was questioning my faith, and you all rejected me, and basically told me to piss off. Like, why does that make me the bad guy?" And it's kind of Pastor Dave was just like, yeah, well, but like I said, it never feels like it's really defending the Christian point of view at all. It's kind of saying, look, hey, we're Christians, we make mistakes, you turn the other cheek, you do this, set up a church, whatever. It just felt a bit vague, if anything.
Yeah.
But I think because it was trying to be nice and rounded view, but unless you're sort of zealously on the side of religion, then you can't even pretend it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like what you were saying, Calvin, that it feels like the plot is kicking in several times, and then every time it just resolves it. Like, there's a point where Reverend Dave filibusters to keep the church from being knocked down before his brother even gets back with the paperwork to stop them knocking it down. And I thought, it's going to be all about his filibuster. It's going to be Reverend Dave, having to give a sermon for 3 days straight on the news, and it's going to get all this attention in the media, and even that goes nowhere.
Well, he just reads the Bible. He just does a sort of Andy Kaufman-esque.
Yeah,
just reads to people.
I did enjoy when his brother marches into the other church to get the judge out, and I think he says something. He's trying to convince her to leave. I think she's Catholic or something. She's like, "Mass is going on," and he says, "But it's about saving the church." And she turns and dramatic look, and then it goes away. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah,
he didn't mention it wasn't a Catholic church, because otherwise she would have spat in his face, and then they would have all ganged up on him and crucified him there.
Yeah.
Oh no, they like that. They think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Very honourable.
So yeah, the film is in this sort of weird middle ground now, where I don't find it as contemptible as the others, but I do find it much less interesting and engaging, because it is in this wishy-washy area.
You can hate stuff for different reasons.
True.
You know what? There's always a sense that, because all these things are, they're defending their actions on the grounds of religious freedom. It's like, hey, we should be allowed to believe what we believe and preach what we want and all that sort of thing. Freedom of speech, American, yay, all that sort of thing. But there's always this little wrinkle that it's like, well, if we're saying that, we also have to say that Muslims are allowed to say whatever they want and believe whatever they want. And I'm like, oh, that's we don't really want to quite acknowledge that. I always like this awkwardness of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how, to people who are fans of the other two, I guess, you're real devout, because, the first one did make an awful lot of money. It was, the most financially successful independent film of whatever year it came out in. I did look up the budget and what it made, and I think it was, a $2 million budget, and it made, 64 million or something, which is obviously really fantastic, and I'm sure that funded this entire franchise. I wonder if you watch those original films and you really like them, do you think of this as a sellout? Is this them trying to appeal to audiences that are never gonna watch these kinds of things anyway? I don't really know what it does franchise-wise.
It's a good point. I reckon most people who lap this shit up probably aren't discerning enough to see a major difference between the three of them. But then maybe they are. Maybe they like feeling persecuted. And
Well, they did make another one, didn't they, after this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So clearly there's still demand.
Pastor Dave Goes to Washington. I watched the trailer.
No, I haven't watched
So it's all
it.
about Pastor Dave again. He's the main character again.
Yep.
He's
Why
the
have
one
they done
paying
that?
for it.
Yeah, but he...
I genuinely think this is a vanity project for this guy. When you look at his acting resume, it's all he was teen 2 in an episode of Saved by the Bell in the early 90s and whatnot, and then his acting career didn't seem to really take off, and then he funded this Pure Flicks entertainment company, and all they do is produce these religious leaning films, and now he's starring in, I guess, their flagship franchise. I think it's just a big vanity project for him. Divorced his wife recently.
He lost her.
Divorced her in real life.
Oh, divorced her. Well, he's definitely not a Catholic then.
No.
Well, I'm looking at the director of the fourth film, and he's an editor. So
he's got credits.
CV.
That's
as an editor, yeah.
Hey. Yeah. No, I'm just reading here that the third film was apparently projected to make $4 to $6 million on its opening weekend, and it ended up just taking 2.6 million. So it underperformed significantly. lowest opening in the series, and an analysis of social media done by something called Relish Mix said that religious audiences saw the film as, quotes, a cash grab and not a movie promoting a Christian message anymore. So there you go. They didn't like it. It was too lenient in its approach to Christianity.
Oh, interesting.
Pushing it upon the uninitiated. Apparently, they were more inclined to go with other faith-based films in theatres, such as I Can Only Imagine and Paul, Apostle of Christ. Whatever those are.
God, I bet in America they must have these kinds of things. If you pull up to a cinema in, I don't know, Oklahoma or something, I wonder if they have all of these things that we never see here.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I wondered how it might fare with their audience.
Do you want to know what I Can Only Imagine is?
Yes.
It's the story behind the group Mercy Me, who, of course, we all know, the very popular band Mercy Me. It's the story behind. It's the story behind their song, which I'm guessing is called I Can Only Imagine as well, which is apparently the best-selling Christian single of all time.
Nice.
I'm looking up on the fourth one, and I've just seen that William Forsythe is in it, who I only really know from being in a bunch of Rob Zombie films. I don't know how you reconcile that. These films do have, odd, sort of occasional, oh yeah, I recognise that person from something.
Isaiah Washington's in it as well.
Yes.
Well, I bet they're Christians.
Probably.
Yeah.
You do a lot
Didn't
of
we
mental
discuss this
gymnastics
before?
when you're a Christian.
When we were looking at before at weird Christian films, and William Forsythe was in one of them.
Oh. Anyway, the trailer for the fourth one makes it look like it gets back to its fire and brimstone roots as Pastor Dave goes to Washington to defend Christian homeschooling against the government.
I just looked at the reception for the fourth one, and the review that it's talking about on Wikipedia calls it deplorable.
Oh.
Which sounds like it's back to the franchise roots. Yeah. That's Influx magazine gave it a rare F grade, calling it deplorable. Christian Toto, that well-known outlet, praised the film, saying it shares the franchise flaws, but its bold mission statement has never been more necessary. So there you go. That's the attitude there.
Interesting.
I'm sure we'll talk about the fourth one at some point.
Yeah, completist nature.
Well, I'd be happy to never watch it.
But, I mean, this third film was a complete and utter slog. It was very hard work. Like you say, Calvin, less unpleasant, just so boring. I don't know what's worse. I don't know if horrible propaganda that I disagree with or boring the shit out of me is worse. I think I'd come down slightly on the side of boring me not being as bad. But there's not a lot in it.
I'm the same.
So I'm gonna rate this now. And I'm gonna give it same as the other two, a 1 out of 10. And I've actually, Tom Patton over on the Discord for some reason has taken it upon himself to write my next lines. He went, I bet Sol says this, and then he wrote a line out. So I'm just going to read it out so that he's right.
I bet it's something that you would say.
See how well he's got my voice down here, because I bet he wouldn't have even known that.
All right, try and do it with conviction, though.
All right. I've now found a franchise that's just as bad as Resident Evil, maybe worse. Well done, Tom. If you want to submit a zinger for a future episode, then head over to patreon.com/dimreturns, join our Discord, and you can write the show as well.
Well, you know what? I liked it.
Did you? I'm just looking up the scores on the other two, and you are far more generous with these films than either me or Sol.
Because I'm trying not to judge it too much. I'm trying not to judge it too much, just purely on its message.
They judge you.
I did with this one because like it didn't go as hard and unpleasant, but it was just so boring. So boring.
Yeah, I didn't find it boring actually. I found it quite watchable, I think.
That's bizarre though, isn't it?
Oh, certainly
just like films where nothing happens.
But I think I liked it when just him and his brother hanging out and like chopping a tree down and stuff and like teasing each other. I quite liked all that stuff.
Did you like the way that when they chopped the tree down, someone had already chopped all the top branches off, but like without us seeing? Because obviously you would do that. It's safe.
That was it. They left one on just so that it looked like a tree. But yeah, I was thinking that, like, isn't this dangerous? They're just pulling this down on top of themselves.
And then when it comes down, it's like, oh, all the branches have been chopped off up there. But
apart from one, which had leaves on it, which suggests it's not dead. The tree's not dead.
God's
surely alive.
tree's not dead.
Well, I thought I had to go up from what I'd done on the first two because I preferred it, so I went with a 5 out of 10.
Jesus.
Hell, that is generous.
Well, I'm with Sol on this. It's not nudging. I think me and Sol have the exact same overall feelings about this. It's certainly less angry, offensive, and up its own arse. Much less so than the other two. But it is just inexplicably boring. I can't begin to describe how just numbing this was to watch. It was just a horrifically boring experience. So yeah, it's a 1.
It's a 1 sandwich.
Yes.
I'm tempted to get Dr. Eve 1 in here. New character who appears from 1 out of 10 ratings. Throw me a frickin' 1 here. All right. Let's move on.
Just a last thing here. I looked up Pureflix, which was the name of the production company at the front.
I know. It sounds like such a late night Channel 5 porn fodder company.
Yeah. Well, they're not called Pureflix anymore. They're called Pinnacle Peak Pictures.
Pinnacle Peak Pictures.
It's even worse.
But here's a weird thing. You'll
Peter Piper picked a pick of Pinnacle Peak Pictures.
Well, it says here the names of the people who founded it. Obviously, the David A.R. White, who is Pastor Dave, is one of them. And one of the others here, apparently, according to Wikipedia, is Michael Scott.
Great Scott! That does sound like an abandoned story from an episode of The Office where Michael Scott ends up financing a film because he thinks it's like a great investment opportunity, and it turns out it's like a Christian propaganda film. And
it says here in 2016 they announced a homeschooling curriculum for families with homeschooled children.
Oh, good lord!
So they don't just do films.
Jesus Christ!
Oh, they made a version of Little Women. That's odd. Oh, with Leah Thompson.
Oh my God, they made that?
Apparently.
Christ almighty.
Are you sure you're looking at the right thing?
I knew Leah Thompson made a Little Women film recently that got overshadowed by the proper one that, that was at the Oscars and everything. I didn't know it was a bit of annoying Christian propaganda, though.
Do you think they changed the plot to make it a bit more,
Well, it's from the old days, isn't it? It's probably quite in keeping with their morals.
Well, I wonder if that was like an attempt for the company to go mainstream, maybe, or I wouldn't surprise me if it's like it must be public
Back
domain.
to the Future and Howard the Duck. That's a major mainstream celebrity.
Well, look, it says here in 2016 they announced they'd struck a long-term multi-year distribution deal with Universal Pictures to release the home media of their films. And it says that their eponymous streaming service, so there was a Pureflix streaming service, was acquired that was bought by Sony.
Oh.
So they don't have that anymore. If you want to watch all their films, you have to go to Sony.
Great. I will not do that.
And then they changed their name to Pinnacle Peak Pictures.
Is that a tax dodge or something? What is that? Why? It's a worse name. Even Peak Pinnacle Pictures is better. Just swap the words around.
Yeah.
It's horrible name.
I'm just looking at some of the other films they're Christian films here. Let's have a look. So we've got Do You Believe?
No.
Starring Lee Majors, Mira
No, it's not.
It says
Starring Lee Majors.
it says he's in it anyway. Now, Saul, this is the one for you. Woodlawn is a 2015 American Christian sports drama.
Woodlawn.
That's all your favourite things.
Woodlawn. How's
Yeah.
it spelt? As in I'm forlorn, but for wood, or my lawn is made out of wood and I need to.
Yeah, like a timber lawn.
Wood lawn. That is, again, just doesn't come out of the mouth very nicely. Do you know what I mean? They're not very good at naming stuff, are they?
Oh, wait a minute. Look, I've found the thing we're going to really love here. This is what we should do next time.
Oh, good.
Okay, so apparently Pastor Dave, the guy who plays him, David R. White.
Whites.
He was in, also made by Pure Flix, a series of films called Revelation Road, in which he plays a former government assassin turned Christian who struggles to survive a lawless post-rapture wasteland.
Yes. Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Now that sounds good.
Oh my god, it's a whole franchise. There's at least 3 of them that have come up.
Really? What are they called?
The first one's called Revelation Road, The Beginning of the End. Revelation Road 2, The Sea of Glass and Fire. Revelation Road, The Black Rider. This is amazing. Amidst foreboding lighting and tremors, a travelling salesman with a dart, blah, blah, blah. Amidst, is that a word? These are the only guys pulling out words like fucking whence in their plot descriptions. What is that? Amidst foreboding lighting and tremors. Tremors. Ooh. Tell you who's in it. Eric Roberts.
Oh yeah,
Brilliant.
that one's got to be next year's. We'll do Revelation Road. That sounds amazing, and it's got Pastor
It does
Dave.
sound
Pastor
fucking
Dave
good,
as a Mad Max style renegade.
All right, well,
that's
God's Not Dead
enough
3, innit?
nonsense about this thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Fuck this shit. Fuck. Peak.
Happy Easter.
Pinnacle Peak pictures.
Happy
Happy
egg.
Happy
Easter.
egg. I'm gonna go eat some chocolate right now, even though it's
Yeah.
not Easter yet.
Any excuse though, eh?
I wish I had a pickled egg. That's what I want. Gonna have to make do with some chocolate. What's that about? I'm really into pickled eggs now. That's my thing. Is that an Easter thing?
No, it's just pickling.
Bet the Amish like a pickled egg. They pickle anything, don't they? What are the Amish? Are they Protestant or Catholic?
That's a good question.
They're Christian, right? They are. It's like a Christian offshoot, Amishness, right?
They all are.
Well, all right. Thanks for listening, guys. God's not dead still, apparently.
He's truly alive.